Welcome to the Solemn Vanguard channel. Today I'm going over my meta predictions for G-Booster set 14. But first I'd like to let you know that if you're in Europe and you still need to pre-order your G-Booster set 14 cards like Luard, Altmile, Chronojet, Sherrod, Minerva, Shiranui, etc. or even cards from Stargate, you can do so at Ventura Games. This is not a sponsored video or anything, I just always pre-order my cards from them and so far everything always arrives on time in pristine shape, so I want to share the love. I'll put a link in the description. So the G-Booster set 14 was released in Japan just now, and we know all the cards, so I figured it'd be interesting to go over how the meta might change. In order to do so, I will first look at the Stargate meta we analyzed before, and then attempt to put the new decks into it to see how that may affect the situation. So looking at the pyramid of Shut Up Reddit, we see two very specific decks at the top of the food chain. This conclusion was based on various results inside the Japanese metagame. In order for the new decks to make a splash, they need to be able to beat these two decks, or else those two will just stay right at the top of the pyramid. That is where our problem starts. I'd argue the best deck in set 14 in a vacuum is Sherrod. Me and Jay playtested quite a bit and this deck is absolutely disgusting. The amounts of toolboxing, guard restrict, restanding and power columns this deck has is just dumb. Luard and ZTB also got some pretty cool toys, and Nubatama is actually surprisingly strong. We also can't forget Altmile's new support, which is also insanely good. Now, as far as Regalia goes, I'm just a complete Regalia noob. I've got plenty of experience with all these other decks, but I just don't have the XP to comment on Regalia, in all honesty. Now, apart from Nubatama, all these decks are countered really hard by Chaos. Sherrod has some Vanguard-centric toys, but its strength comes from the guard restricts from Balam paired with Baleful Repressor. ZTB is reliant on Cruising Boy and Transit to generate advantage, and the same goes for Pony with Sheep. Sure, you might say Chronovisor unlocks, but keep in mind that this usually doesn't happen until third stride. If you're gonna sit there with your dick in your hand with a locked board for 3 turns, you're gonna die. Ain't no Chronovisor gonna stop that. Luard requires rearguard retires to do anything at all, and Altmile needs to call in order to start its multi-attack onslaught. All of these decks really need their rearguards to realize their potential, and Chaos just shits all over that dream. Whilst I do think some of the new support could get kinda close to Victor, none of these decks can consistently deal with Chaos. So if Chaos stays popular, I feel like most GBT14 support is relatively in vain. On one hand, this is actually almost positive because Dust truly is a stupid card. Spike Brothers can consistently get first stride Dust just by running Jelly Beans and lots of Mecha Trainers in order to G-guard 2 or 3 times, go into Dust and end the game with insane multi-attacks right there. Sherrod is completely stupid when running Baleful Repressor with Dust, and ZTB can also do loads of multi-attacking with Dust. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Even when I was holding 2 PGs, 3 heals and like 5 critical triggers and a bunch of other cards, I still could not guard Dust when playing against Jay. Dust will, in most cases, win you the game. In essence, this Chaos dominance is the only thing keeping that dumb card in check. One deck we didn't talk about, however, is Nubatama. First stride Rinne can often be the end of the game already, and their lack of reliance on rearguards makes them care a whole lot less about Chaos. They still aren't the best hand building deck, however, so from hand locking still hurts them. But out of all the decks in set 14, this deck probably has the best chance, surprisingly. So what's my conclusion? Keep in mind that this is all predictive, so Japanese results will definitely alter my lists once they start rolling in. If we assume you don't see a lot of Chaos, the competitive landscape would be immensely diverse, and I'd rank the decks something like this, keeping in mind that the power levels are relatively close to each other and they all have solid strengths and weaknesses. The first line we have Sherrod because they got everything they ever wanted apart from an unlocker. Victor because they got everything they ever wanted and 2 unlockers. Spike Brother Dust BS because their first stride kill is really consistent. The leaders because it doesn't really matter how strong your deck is post stride if you never get there. And maybe Gredora, purely because she restricts quite a few decks playstyles in these top 2 layers of the pyramid. On the next layer we have Altmile, Shiranui, Luard and ZTB. And on the bottom of the pyramid I would put all the other decks that have been power creeped hard but still destroy every non-supported clan. For example, Overlords and Tavas. However, this list is a dreamy utopia because Chaos is a thing and that drastically changes everything if it's played a lot. Assuming Chaos is played a lot, as it should in a competitive environment, the list changes to this. Chaos, Victor, Shiranui, Deleaters, Messiah. Though those two last ones aren't necessarily as good as the first two, I do see them topping purely because of the other two on this highest level. On the next layer, I'd put Tavas and Overlords because even though they get fucked in the Chaos matchup, they get fucked slightly less so. I would also put ZTB here since Gear Next does do something at least, and Sherrod also still has some Vanguard-centric toys. Fedora does too and inhibits Victor slightly. On this next layer, I'd put Altmile and Luard. Keep in mind, these are in no way bad decks. What I'm doing here is not a tier list. It'd be preposterous to say Altmile or Luard are tier 3. That's not the case at all. I'd argue everything on this pyramid is a high tier deck. I'm just making this order going from the assumption that we're in a highly competitive landscape where every player plays a competitive deck. These decks could crush the rest on the pyramid. They're only put here because Chaos hurts them so much. Resist is not enough to beat from hand locking. So if you're in a matchup that's not Chaos and you play Altmile or Luard, you'll probably still win. It's just very likely that as you progress to higher tables, you'll meet a Chaos player at some point and then you might meet your demise. So that was it for this video. I'd say most support inside G-Booster set 14 is actually really good. It's just sad that no one got unlockers even though they totally should have. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please subscribe to the Solemn Vanguard channel and click that bell button to stay up to date. It's so important to me, so please do. As I said before, if you haven't pre-ordered your set 14 cards yet, I put a link in the description where you can do so. I always order from Ventura Games. I personally am a very impatient person when it comes to something I love like Vanguard, so I always pre-order things to make sure I get them as soon as possible. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this video, and I will see you soon. Ciao.